Before Roman Reigns ever called himself the tribal chief, there was already a man wrestling fans and even wrestlers themselves considered the real thing. He never needed a title to prove it, and decades later, he's still the one name that commands instant respect across the entire Samoan and Tongan wrestling world. So here's the question I want to dig into today. Is Haku actually the real tribal chief? I need to be upfront. This is a theory and analysis video, not a report of some official WWE announcement. But the real history behind it is genuinely fascinating. Welcome back to Ringside Report. Let's get into it. Let's start with the real, confirmed foundation, because Haku's legacy isn't manufactured. It's one of the most respected in wrestling history. Performing under the name King Haku, Tonga Fifita became a legitimate legend across multiple promotions, real championship success in WWE, WCW, Puerto Rico, and Japan. He feuded with Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage in the late 80s after adopting the King Haku persona. And his reputation for legitimate toughness became wrestling folklore. Eric Bischoff has openly said he was hesitant to ever fire Haku during his WCW run, which tells you everything about how seriously people in the business took him. Haku is considered a founding figure of the modern Samoan wrestling dynasty, the same real-life family tree that eventually produced The Rock, Roman Reigns, the Usos, and Solo Sikoa. He came from the same area as Peter Maivia, The Rock's own grandfather, which is part of why The Rock has publicly referred to Haku as Uncle Tonga, a term of real, earned respect within that extended wrestling family, not just a nickname. So where does the real tribal chief idea actually come from? This is where things get interesting, because it's not something WWE has ever said on camera. It's a comparison that's come from wrestling media and fans looking at the real-life history behind the character. Roman Reigns adopted the tribal chief persona as part of his Bloodline reinvention, presenting himself as the head of the entire Samoan wrestling family. But commentators have pointed out that, historically, Haku was already carrying that kind of respected, unquestioned authority within the real Anoa'i and extended Tongan wrestling world decades before Reigns ever stepped into the role. Haku's family, Tama Tonga and Tala Tonga among them, represents a real, blood connection to this legacy that predates the entire Bloodline storyline WWE has been telling. That's genuinely part of why fans and analysts have floated the idea that if there's a real tribal chief in this world, someone whose respect was earned outside of any scripted storyline, it's Haku. To be clear, that's commentary and fan framing, not something WWE has scripted Reigns or anyone else to acknowledge on television. Now let's talk about a related theory that's actually gotten some traction, the idea of Haku stepping into a Wiseman-style advisor role, similar to what Paul Heyman has done for Reigns. This idea has come from wrestling analysts specifically discussing potential replacements, or additions to the Bloodline's power structure. The logic is straightforward. Haku already has the built-in credibility, the real family connection to Tama and Tala, and decades of respect across the wrestling world. He was even present at Paul Heyman's own WWE Hall of Fame induction, reinforcing just how tightly woven he already is into this world's history. If WWE wanted to give Haku's sons an even bigger platform, positioning Haku as a guiding Wiseman-type presence rather than just a returning legend giving one big speech would be a logical creative direction, someone who doesn't need to wrestle to make an entire faction feel more dangerous and more legitimate. And as we've already covered in earlier breakdowns, that's actually started to play out. Haku has returned, rebranded Tama and Tala as the Sons of Haku, and stood alongside them as they've torn through opponents on SmackDown. So some of this speculation has already begun proving accurate, even if it hasn't been framed as him formally taking over any kind of Bloodline leadership position. I want to be completely clear here before we go any further, because I don't want to blur the line between real analysis and an actual news claim. What's confirmed: Haku's legendary in-ring history, his real family ties to Tama and Tala, his connection to the broader Samoan wrestling dynasty, and his current on-screen role leading the Sons of Haku. All of that is real and has aired on WWE television. What's not confirmed: any official Bloodline elder's announcement declaring Haku is replacing Roman Reigns as leader, tribal chief, or anything resembling that. That has not happened, has not been reported by any legitimate outlet, and there's no indication WWE is planning something like that. The real tribal chief framing is commentary and fan theory built on real history, not a storyline WWE has actually written. My honest take: I don't think WWE needs to ever formally crown Haku as anything to make this theory compelling. The power of it is precisely that his respect exists outside the storyline, built on decades of real accomplishment rather than a title or an on-screen coronation. If anything, that makes him a more interesting figure than a traditional authority character, because his credibility doesn't need WWE's permission to be real. Whether or not the Sons of Haku ever directly challenges Reigns' side of the bloodline, Haku's mere presence already adds a layer of legitimacy this story hasn't had before. So that's the full breakdown of the real tribal chief theory. A genuinely fascinating piece of wrestling history and fan analysis, built on Haku's real legacy, but not an actual WWE storyline or announcement. Nothing here says he's replacing Roman Reigns. It's a look at why that comparison exists in the first place. I want to know what you think in the comments. Do you buy the idea that Haku deserves the real tribal chief title based on his real history? And do you want to see WWE ever formally acknowledge that on screen? If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment. Thanks for watching Ringside Report. Long live the soul. Peace.